Thank you very much. If you may just stay, we're going to bring some chairs up.
Yep.
And
okay.
I would love to pick your brains. So also I invite Tiana Baker, CMO at CoinFloor, one of UK's first exchanges. Where are you?
She's getting a mic back.
Oh, she's getting a microphone. Yep. Perfect. Welcome up. Before you joined CoinFloor, you work with HSBC, Citigroup, Hilton, a lot of big brands. I'm excited to hear your thoughts about the crypto space. We also have Maximilian Groth. Was that the correct pronunciation? Yeah. Well, let's call him Maximilian Groth. This is a growth crypto convention, isn't it? So you are co-founder at Decentric, a company bridging the gap between traditional financial, traditional financial institutes and distributed ledgers. My first question to you all is, first of all, how much do you actually believe in crypto? Do you have 100% of your assets in crypto? Those of you who have arm up. No.
You can't live in it.
No, not yet. Not yet. I actually was
There's a guy here who says
yeah.
you can, and who's making his money to make you believe that you can.
Well, but is he building a construction based on private keys? I mean, we can't live in it.
Not yet. Not yet. So, I mean, we're all talking about this space and that it needs to grow, but in order for it to grow, we need to start bringing the entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs need to start building stuff that actually adds value, revenue, or whatever you call it. So what do you guys think the entrepreneurs should do? What should they focus on?
Yeah, building on top of the protocol layers, as I said. We should all start, instead of building just utility tokens, really start to look at the space and try to build long-term economical models on top of decentralized protocols.
I would go back just one step to say that we see, I'm a little loud, sorry. ICOs have become a crowdfunding source of venture capital. The ICO in and of itself is not the value. And unfortunately, because capital has been raised so quickly, it is being interpreted as such. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for money because you have a fantastic use case and you have a great idea and you need money to build a business and it's a service or a product that you can tokenize digitally, then that's brilliant. But not everything is meant for the blockchain, quite honestly. There are some things where it becomes redundant. And raising capital to issue a coin or a token is not a business.
I agree.
In my opinion.
I agree. Maximilian, you work with some of the more old school companies like financial institutes and stuff. What kind of entrepreneurship do you see there that should happen within smaller companies instead?
I mean, we mainly work with, do you hear me?
No.
Oh.
Okay, now you're on.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. So we mainly work with traditional financial services companies such as Swiss banks and index providers. And for them, the first thing is actually to fundamentally understand what's going on. For example, together with some people from the Swiss banking society, we built a financial product that is stock listed in Frankfurt. And of course, bridging, let's say, the old traditional financial world with all the regulation, etc., together with the crypto and tokens is quite complex. In terms of entrepreneurial suggestion, unfortunately, at least in our space, you need a lot of legal competence in order to make this bridge.
Has GDPR been a big thing that you discuss?
For us, not so much, because we don't work with data-sensitive information, because all the customer information is held within the banks. We don't have any direct relationship with any end customer. Our partners are the banks and the stock exchanges.
Tiana, I mean, you come from these very strong brands. You left big brands to join a smaller brand, CoinFloor. What differences / similarities do you see between these old school companies versus these new companies?
Well, so most recently from a large financial institution, there's a pretty significant difference in the, I hate to use the word, but the agility of the business. So both businesses may well want to move in a particular direction. One business being larger and heavier and more people and, trying to make decisions through consensus takes longer. So a smaller business does have that ability to move quickly. Now, the flip side of that is that the time that the larger business takes to really consider the impact of decisions, and sometimes it takes too long, but the impact and the future focus of what that decision is going to mean and how it is going to be consumed by the customers that you have, and research on how the UX is going to be what's the word I'm looking for? Digested, experienced by the end user. So there's lots of processes that happen in a big company that slow things down, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. So sometimes in a small company, some of those things get possibly postponed until later or overlooked because there is this momentum, and then that's where you get the kind of fail fast mentality, like, oh, we messed that up, let's go back and fix that later. So I think for me, I'd love for us all to find a happy medium where we can move quickly, but yet maybe make a few less mistakes.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that?
Well, I fully agree. As a young company working together with very big or multi-billion-dollar institutions, at the very beginning it's quite hard because they don't really move forward as quickly as we want to or need to, also from a financial perspective. Nevertheless, these gateways they have, for example, with legal and compliance, actually make the product much, much, much better. And afterwards, you're actually quite happy that certain processes were in place.
And I think that I'll just add to that, that if you're developing something and you do want to access those gateways, or partnering in a JV might allow your business to grow exponentially, there is going to have to be a meeting of the minds. So you can't, as a small business, just turn up and go, oh, we're totally decentralized, and we wear sneakers and we're so cool, because these big banks are going to think, well, I don't get it, and they don't. The credibility sometimes isn't always immediate. So it depends on what you're after.
Speaking of decentralization, I mean, CoinFloor, together with Coinbase and other new institutions, they're kind of centralized. Isn't that defeating the whole purpose?
So again, it depends on what your business model is and what your intention is. So for CoinFloor, we are an institutionally focused exchange. So we are indeed a centralized exchange. And we see our service to the market to be that bridge between traditional fiat currencies and those markets and the institutions and sophisticated investors that operate within those markets. So we're that kind of crypto middleman, right? Our founders are not bankers, they're technologists and crypto traders. So they are definitely, startup libertarian coiners. They believe in this industry. But they also see that for the industry to grow and for price volatility to come down, and for the tokens and coins to be used as they were intended. The reason people don't use Bitcoin to pay for things is because the price is so volatile. The more liquidity you have in a market, the more stable the price, and then these coins can be used what they were actually intended to be used for.
Alexander, do you see a threat on if you look at these sort of centralized exchanges versus decentralized exchanges that are popping up now? What are your 2 cents about that?
Well, decentralized exchanges still have a few things to solve before they can be a real threat. they will be important. But I think that in a business of an exchange, there is a bit more of a responsibility you need to put on it. It needs to be a layer of management that really drives things. We've seen all with DAO what happened, right? If you rush things to decentralizations, you're bound to kind of run into big problems, and in blockchain, it's very hard to go back.
Yes.
Right?
The blockchain never forgets.
So for that particular reason, I think that the exchange business will probably move to the decentralized model, but will do so slowly. You have, I forgot, Quarry, what was the name of Japanese exchange? They have a centralized exchange, and they're building the decentralized versions. I'm sure these guys will do the same. It's just a different business model that needs time to evolve and to make sure all things are in place. If you create a decentralized exchange, it's done, it's created, and to change it is kind of, it's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. And you have regulatory changes upcoming that you need to adjust to. So, you know, still the centralized exchanges are still a good idea. Still, not ideal, but good idea.
Thank you. So if we look more on the investment side of things, asking you, Maximilian, so what kind of strategies do you? I know that you're not a fund investor, but I mean you're in the space. What do you look for when you're looking at a new project?
I mean, we actually manage the assets of the products that are stock listed. So we run a hybrid approach consisting of a quantitative part and a qualitative part. I think in terms of quantitative part, I think your presentation was very insightful, where you can look at certain metrics, but nevertheless, because it's very early days in that space, the qualitative part is quite important. So, I mean, of course, you can read the news, but can you always trust them? No. So when you're in this industry for a few years, you know some people, you meet them, you look at the teams, do they move forward? Do they actually have a partnership with certain companies, or is it just like some announcement that they work with Apple because they bought some MacBook Pros? In that market stage, also I need to disagree a bit with you that you will not beat the index, but I think in this very, very early days, having a certain understanding of the technology, having your legs and looking at some projects in detail can be very, very fruitful for the investors.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What do you guys look at?
Yeah, we also really try to look at fundamentals, and I completely agree. An index is good to benchmark against, but you don't want BitConnect or obviously also not USD Tether or some other Ripple. Well,
elaborate on that. Why is Ripple not a good idea? I know this is all. This is obviously financial advice. So.
Yeah. So there was a very interesting podcast on lately from Unchained. Maybe some of you guys are familiar with that. And they tried to get the CEO of Ripple to come there to have a discussion about why Ripple is being bought so much by retail investors, but the whole Ripple is not for retail investors. So that was a very interesting podcast I will recommend to listen to. And basically what it boils down to is that the Ripple token itself will not be, the XRP token will not be used by bank, and it's something completely different than the XRP company, and they don't have a long-term revenue model for that token. So, you know, I would not invest in our portfolio. We do have a small percentage, and you know that's what we call significant bullshit, a little bit. So it's like there's a big community behind it, so it's probably not smart to completely destroy it out of your portfolio directly if you already hold, but I wouldn't buy in right now. No.
Interesting. Yeah, because
I don't think you should buy anything that you don't understand.
Exactly.
I think this is one of the things that I say
Obviously.
probably every day when people say, "Oh, what should I buy?" You wouldn't buy a car that you haven't researched. You wouldn't take a job that you haven't researched. I think sometimes we get caught up in the hype, or you know, a friend says this, or you know, this coin is going to do the next thing, and a lot of it is speculation. But if you don't understand it or you don't believe in it, so if you read the white paper and you come away and you don't understand what the company is trying to do,
Yeah.
it probably isn't that you maybe aren't that smart. And I think that all the time, oh, maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand this. Maybe it's bad. Maybe the
Yeah.
idea is bad. Maybe it's badly explained. So if you don't understand or you don't believe in the problem that they're trying to solve, or that there in fact is a problem, why would you buy it?
But
Yeah,
also that they are
yeah.
capable of executing on
Indeed,
it.
yeah.
That's an important part.
Indeed.
Try to look deeper at Ripple. There's all these bank partnerships which get a lot of attention. Oh, this bank, this bank, this bank. But what's actually happening is that the XP company is giving a lot of these tokens to these companies and saying, well, we give you a lot of money and we want to implement some technology so we can pump our own coin. Wow, that's for me something very crazy that people buy into that. Well,
Do you agree on that, Maximilian?
I mean, I also was referring to the same podcast, but actually Ripple is also something, what you said, I never really understood, to be honest.
Yeah. So basically what we want to understand is this token that they're claiming to have, or the coin, it needs to have some kind of value. It needs to have, because we have three type
No,
of tokens.
it needs to have a reason.
Yeah.
So, I mean, today it has a value. I mean, what I think it might
But
be
Isn't it obvious?
82 cents, I
So what
think,
reason
today.
does Bitcoin have?
Well, but Bitcoin was created to be an alternative to fiat currency.
Yeah.
So that's its reason. That is not what XRP was developed to do. So the Ripple platform, an interbank settlement, which is probably a deeper, longer conversation, so I won't get into what the Ripple platform was designed to do. In theory, that makes sense. You know, cheaper cross-border settlement, sure, fine. But the token has no use today. They just created a token because they could. So does it have value? Well, depending on who you're talking to, sure, it's 82 cents today, that's the value. But it has no reason. It has no use. they're not the same thing.
With Bitcoin or other currencies, it's currency through adoption. It's basically most utility tokens work in the model to currency through adoption. If a lot of people use it and there's a lot of transaction volume, then the currency in itself will appreciate in value. But you will rarely don't get it in a utility token that easy, but in a currency you do. So yeah, that's sometimes good to invest.
So we have three types of tokens. We have currency ones, we have general purpose ones, and we have utility token. The last few years, it's been all about currency ones. Which general purpose?
What do you mean by general purpose?
Like a platform one, like
A
Ethereum.
utility token, access token.
No, a general purpose
A
platform.
protocol.
Like a protocol.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Where do you see that as the second wave, or do you see it's cryptocurrencies? Because when I speak to people about cryptocurrency, it's all about money, money, money. When do you think it's going to start switching over to being value, as you said? Because money.
It's switching. It's
Yeah.
switched.
Yeah.
In
It's
this room, it's switched. But if we go out on the street, would you say
That
it's
will take a
switched?
few years, because you need those valuable networks to really create an ecosystem to create things built on it. The platforms are just platforms. They're just foundation. You start building buildings where people can live in, or people can buy stuff, or people can come and be entertained, or whatever use. Then that's what happens. And you need the apps or those kinds of things. And they're already starting popping up.
Yes.
They're already starting to appear.
I mean, we are all quite bullish on the blockchain and what we think it can do. But if we look at some of these old people within the space, like Charles Munger, Vice President Berkshire Hathaway, he said, I quote, "I never considered for 1 second having anything to do with this. I detested it in the moment it was raised. It's just disgusting. Bitcoin is noxious poison." What is he missing?
So
How can these clever, used to be clever people, what are they missing?
So they don't really see the power of the decentralization model. Like it's a very grand goal, but like if we go back to the internet itself, the internet was designed to be more decentralized, but then it didn't really happen. But now we have really the chance to really do that again, and then this time do it well. So basically create a network where we move to the edges of the network, and then the power will be more spread out. I think a lot of people don't really get that.
I mean, if you look at the history of Berkshire Hathaway, I mean, Warren Buffett actually once admitted many times that when it comes to technology investment, there are better people out there. I mean, he's the greatest or one of the greatest investors in the world. Nevertheless, you cannot understand everything.
Yeah, no, their strategy, and that's correct statement, their strategy and the people in there, their strategy is to find value that is undervalued. So by Goldman Sachs when it's kind of in the middle of crisis. And, but what they're looking at is proven value. This is about building something completely new, and it's a completely different value creation process. Berkshire Hathaway is just value investor. It's different from growth investor.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same thing happening in internet times.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's a venture capital case more from a, if you look at institutional investors.
Okay.
And all the big venture capital firms are in it since many years. So.
Really.
I also have a slightly unpopular view, so I'm probably going to lose the room here. But for any network effect to grow exponentially, and I think that for the decentralized community, there is that build it and people will come. It's cool, it works, it solves a problem. Why wouldn't you? Unfortunately, we live in a world that is full of institutional and government and regulatory influence, right? So from the original Bitcoin of let's create this thing where we don't need any of that anymore, I mean, I personally believe in it. I think it's great. But I'm also practical, and I'm a bit of a pragmatist, and I think, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, institutional money creates liquidity and volume, and that then creates the opportunity for something to grow. For that to happen, I think we need to have a framework around governments being able to cooperate with each other. And I'm not saying regulation. What I'm saying is agreed code of conducts, or these are the three buckets we're going to put things in. So that's why I asked what was in your general use bucket. I kind of think of payment tokens, so your currencies, financial asset tokens, which we've not even gotten into, which is the big topic of discussion now in the secondary market for these things. And then your utility token, your airline mile that's now a token, or your access to Spotify that's now a token. And so we kind of need a common taxonomy for these governments to work together so that, something isn't being shut down over here and then an exchange needs to move over here. And right now it's still so...
legal arbitrage, basically.
Well, yeah, and that's creating some of this... The decentralized element is making it harder for it to grow within the confines of our existing.
It makes it faster to grow for the people, but harder for the governments to understand or to control it. So governments, they cannot control most of this, and I think we will see a lot, maybe parts of the world where there is no governments, but there will be governance without governments. So there will be more decentralization.
No, I agree. But I think your question was, when are we going to see this happening every day? When are we going to be using these tokens every day? And my fear is that if, the U.S. government, which controls a lot of things for a number of financial reasons that, again, I won't get into, if they decide that all of these utility tokens are securities, then all of that innovation that's happening is going to become 5 times more expensive if they have to register all of these tokens as securities.
No, it's just going to go on happening in the rest of the world like it is right now.
Yeah.
Most of it is happening outside of the U.S. U.S. is very slow in those things. But I'd like to add one thing here. I don't think we need institutional money. I don't think we need governments. I think what we need to do is focus on what we do is build things, and actually that will do is make governments compete for us. Compete for constituencies. That's something Tim Draper said a few weeks ago, and it kind of hit me. Which something that I really like about blockchain is that it will create an environment where governments of the world will compete for my attention, will compete for my business, will compete for my voice. That's what I like about it. It's a complete disruption.
Yes.
That's
like Crypto Rico is doing now, or
That would be great. I would like to see the banks competing for my business, and right now they don't want it at all.
we're gonna have some. We're gonna have some questions from the audience. Yep. No, the guy that just yeah.
On the topic of the Big Short, that is a very popular investment and is arguably a big driving force behind our current world economy. However, in the crypto space, we don't have banks, we don't have big governments that can issue, large amounts of money. Do you ever think we will have a sort of a debt-driven crypto future in the same way that we do with our current economy?
That would be. I would not be in favor of that.
Yeah, I hope not.
I hope not. No.
Is that the short and sweet answer?
I mean, you can tokenize
I don't know.
that.
It's not. I don't think it's. I think the debt-based system that we have today is a big problem. The only reason why we have money on a bank account is because somebody else is in debt, and that I think is a system we will look back at in the future to like how could we accepted this for such a long time.
No, the thing is with debt, what it allows you to do is to grow faster, kind of have more capital to build things, right? In crypto space, you actually have an access of that capital, of crypto capital. The system is not yet ready to digest all of that. If you add debt products based on that kind of options or whatever margins trading, you'll only add oil to the fire.
Well, you
That's
can
the-
tokenize debt
I
and
was
then
just
not
gonna
take.
say that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see a real surge of private equity tokens, which essentially is debt. So if you decide, instead of the ICO model, that you want to fund your business with a debt token, and you're going to issue shares in your company, that's debt.
Yeah.
Or is that just not a other way of, it's a mix between the two? Or is it actually debt?
Well,
If you owe someone money, it's debt.
yeah.
Okay. So next question down there.
Hi, everyone. So my question is for you, Alexander. You created a cryptocurrency index for the top 100. So it's a multi-tier question. First, why the top 100? Why not all? Why not top 10 or some other number? And also, are you going to create a product that tracks this index so you can actually buy into the index somehow and get exposure to this non-coin picking activity to, so to say, buy the market? And also, if you're not doing that, what are the index for? How should you use it and who is it for? Thank you.
Thank you. So to answer the first question, the why 100, I've spoken to a few of your colleagues and a few of the others here, and 10 or 20 make much more sense today. That's true, because it's 80, 90% of the market. But what we are doing is not building something for today, we're building something for tomorrow. By the time we finish it, the 100 will make sense. What sense it will make is that if you take top 20, I believe that bigger part of it, or 80% of it, those blockchains will not be alive in 5 years. They'll die because they 80% of them. It's not the fact that they're big already, that they have big market caps. People fail, startups fail. So in order to actually have a market benchmark, you need a much bigger number. That's why S&P 500 based indexes are much more popular and are much more useful than Dow Jones 30, right? So that was the rationale. We wanted to go beyond 100, but we understood that so far it's just not manageable. In terms of the second and third questions, I'm going to answer the third one first. The usage of an index it has two usages. One is to use it as a benchmark for financial analysis, I have shown. So the market financial analysis of risk and excess return are based on the benchmark index. You cannot kind of do it based on whatever. You have to benchmark it against something, and that is the index. That's what it's used for now. We're creating some of financial analysts' reports based on that. And the second use is, as you mentioned, index funds. And yes, we're planning to build those. We're not going to do it ourselves. What we do is we are doing the back end of it, and we are partnering up with other players to build them for the end consumer.
A follow-up question. Why don't you just use market cap percentage instead of a number if you want to be future resilient and stay relevant?
I'm sorry?
For the index, you said like top 100 is more relevant for the future, but if you take a percentage of the market cap instead and use that as the number, like like 75% of the market cap should be included in the index no matter what amount of cryptocurrencies.
That's a methodology question, which is not I'm not the right person to answer it. I have a partner who handles that part much better. It's I don't like to answer questions that I'm not an expert to. But just one point comes to mind: 75% of the market cap would be about 5 or 6 cryptocurrencies.
You can have whatever number you want, of course.
Yeah, wouldn't be so on. So sorry, I'll answer that question privately in a follow-up. I'll ask him.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We unfortunately don't have any time for further questions, but I'm sure you guys going to stick around afterwards, so feel free to ask the questions then. Thank you very much for letting me pick your brain and answering the questions. Thank you very much. A round of applause, please.
Thank you.